So I wanted to do at least two things, and that is look at whatever you've got, comment on it, critique it. And then I also wanted to just talk about aesthetics. I think it's a big part of what this class is all about. Let me start by looking at a couple of files that I saw that were in the classroom. All right, volcano, Ryan. I'm gonna actually pull this one. Can look at it. Okay, so this file's new, I think. Yeah, you have version 2 on it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just I think we talked about this already, but let's just talk about a couple of things just aesthetically, because that's what today's about. Today's about working, right? I don't think there's any new thing coming up here. So I think your perspective is pretty good on this faraway volcano and this one here on our right. I want to almost like take this water and bring the water out more like this, just because it's really close to the camera. And then even splay it out here even more. I think you'll have a better luck with the consistency of the perspective itself and the aesthetics. I think we might have talked about this either last week or 2 weeks ago when we saw this. Really pinched the dark and the light blue together right when it's away from camera. I think that you're doing that, but I think that just this little revision here gives more of a sense of the overall perspective from one point perspective. And I think that that alters this too, this little mud pond. You know, I think that this can be a little bit more organic, but let it go off the screen. Just let it go all the way off. And the same thing, let the differential between the dark and the light green be as close as you can get it in the deeper perspective. You know, something like that. I think even just those lines help the overall aesthetic. You know, this isn't too bad here. The difference of shapes here making the mountain, but I disagree with you that this line right here that's right on the horizon would be completely straight. It would be straight, but I think that what you can do is just give it more of an organic form. You know, give it more of just a wiggly line and then break it and let it come more towards camera here. I think it's the same thing when we go all the way back to our Pixie Dust day and say that what we're looking for is the combination of very small, medium, or medium, small, medium, large, very large, extremely large. You know, you're looking for a variety of shapes. And so I don't see any real true problem here, but I think that it could just be augmented by putting in a little detail here and there. Make it smooth, yeah, like right here, but then maybe right in here, you do have the idea of there's a tree. And then I think that this right here, this little area right here comes closer to the camera. So go ahead and don't be afraid to put more detail in right here, just as a static outline. And then put some holes in there, just a couple. I think that'll help a lot, just the idea of what you're looking at. You're looking at trees. And I think I like what you're going with this little brush here, but I think that you should be specific about it. I think that carry it out into here, carry it off the screen, make it maybe a little darker right here. And then don't be afraid to put another band of trees like on the mountains that are in a faraway background. All right, so having said that, I think that, well, I thought we talked about this little lava thing here. I think what you want to do is establish a pathway and keep this established pathway smooth. And I don't think that you really need this little band right here across the top. I think that you can very easily just give yourself maybe one little drip of lava here. And remember that we're doing this for the proximity of games, so that it is looping, right? Well, this one doesn't have to loop, but the idea would be looping. And if you really wanted to get this thing going, then draw this out, plan this out, that this has a node, this has a node, a smaller one, and then maybe a bigger one, so that you are calculating the rate that the lava is moving down the side of the mountain. And then that way you're actually in betweening these nodes rather than just a very organic amorphous shape. Ideally, what you might want to do is have this thing in the timeline, copy 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 8 different times when the smoke is cycling. So you get the smoke working, and then you just copy that, all of the levels that make up the smoke. And then during these 8 cycles here, then you can make something more cinematic, and so that this lava actually comes really close and eventually touches the water, and then you can have some steam. Remember, one of the easier ways to draw steam was just like I did before. You just draw one line, and then you kind of go over it again, maybe draw some little particles out here. So I think that would be an improvement there. So I don't have this looping. I thought I did want it to loop, but that's okay. So what you want to do here with these projectiles is really think about the direction and the path that the projectiles are taking. You know, maybe one comes up and just kind of tumbles down the side of the mountain here. Maybe one of them just goes completely off the screen. And then remember, this is a mile or a mile and a half away. So having said that, I think you need to spend a bit more time with these projectiles in the air. I think they're moving just way too fast, right? And so if this one here comes up and hits here and causes a fire, you do have, let's say that you have 32 frames of the smoke cycling right here. I think that what you can easily imagine is that this projectile is a mile away, and it's going to go here to the horizon. This could be 5 miles away. And so for any sort of rock or molten rock or whatever it is, this could take a few seconds, at least 2 seconds, to get from the position on the perspective grid into the deep horizon. I think so this part ends up being really cartoony, just because you have it moving too fast. Once it does this, I think that this fire ends up should be really small because it's really far away. And I think that you could do this, you could animate this and then copy and paste it for whenever these projectiles hit the trees over here. But I think that you've got a little area right here where, you know, you have to decide, yeah, this is like mud and this was like your ocean. And so it could be conceivable that there's maybe a river or something or whatever. Maybe there's just like a series of trees right here. I'm trying to make it not interfere with anything. And I also don't want to be too like color form about this. I don't want it to just fit in there like it was a Lego piece. I think that it could be shrubbery. I think that this band of trees here could even widen out a little bit and become more shrubbery over here. So these two lines here end up becoming more like bramble, bushes, briars, berries, weeds, right? And then you can just kind of think about what the weeds might look like, give more detail to the stuff that's really up front here, and then carry that around here so that you've got some bushes. And then maybe it stops because the main body of water is right here. And then so I think that you, instead of putting the fire here, because I think that your fire looked something like this. And in that case, this fire would be like a huge forest fire. And if that was true, then this huge forest fire would have smoke billowing off it going with the same direction that your volcano smoke is going. And I think you could still do that, but then just think about the idea of nodes. And, you know, even though this might look random, I am doing like the counting of nodes right here. So I'm thinking about the smoke billowing out, you know, whatever, because this is a huge forest fire right here. And I think that that could be successful. That would be fine. But I think that you should handle it and treat it more like that. And then again, remember that I'm doing this just very systematically in terms of nodes so that I can very clearly animate this and very easily animate this. And then I think that if you really wanted to explore fire, then just take this bush right here and have a projectile come up and hit this bush, which immediately sets it on fire. And then plan out your fire so that this time you can really see the fire. And it's really up front to us. It's right in the middle of the camera. But even with this scraggly little line here, I think that improves the idea of this fire back here is so far away, you really don't see any shapes except it's just wiggling around. But you see that there's more dense smoke here. All right, are you following along? You could just nod. Okay. All right, so I disagree with your perfect circle. I think that these are interesting to look at, but first of all, you've got them spaced so that these two are 2.5 inches together and this is 3 inches together. So that would mean this speeds up, which would be fine. I think you could do that. But I also think that as it's speeding up, it should maybe get a little bigger. But I think that this is smoke, so these should be organic. I think that if you were going to try to do something really geometrical, then you would want to do something geometrical with all of this. And then the idea would be is that, well, let me just finish the critique on the aesthetics of your smoke first, because if you really wanted to think about this motion here, then go back and look at it graphically and said, well, maybe there should be another hole here because it's getting faster. And then we won't see this one because the actual position of it would be way off the screen. It would be way over there. So I think that you should start out with this smoke being a little bit more organic, and then thinking about the track like this. And then you can say, okay, those are my keys. And I'm just darkening up these positions here, even to the point where you can put one here and say, I've got this one. And so here you're saying, okay, go back, it gets bigger in every key. That's fine, that's easy to understand. And then you're going to just give it more of an amorphous kind of shape. And you probably will need this one to animate the ones that are here on the track. And so this is your halfway position. This is your breakdown position. And so that's just the whole. So I think that what you really want to do then is look at the aesthetics of your smoke. So remember we said everything, the variety of shape going from very small to extremely large. So give yourself an outside shape here, a little one, and then another little one. And this is where you can start to say, oh, I'm going to go for something really geometrical and really graphic here by making these shapes just very round. I think you could do that. It's fine, but just give yourself more of a variety of shapes. All right, so this one's easy then. If you've got the main node here going from this key to this key to this key, then that would be easy, because then your path on the top is like this, and then your breakdown positions are here and here. The one on the bottom is going to be where it reads. So once again, small, very small, medium small, very, very small, another super small, and then a medium. And I always think about this, just think about the variety of your shapes. And at this point, you could start thinking, okay, this does look like the demonstration that we did for our volcano, which is fine. And I think that what you're trying to do is trying to investigate some sort of style, which I think is fine. But what I'm doing right here is I'm paying attention to where these nodes are. So this is a big one, becomes big. And then I'm going to look back here and say, I want to combine these two right here to make a bigger one so that it matches this key position. And then instead of just this wiggly line, I'm going to have another big outside curve right here that this shape animates into. So then go small, super small, and then something like this. Because what's happening is that you did this just a little bit too randomly. So watch this. This is a medium and a small, and then another big one here, especially in your first keyframe, that matches these keyframes. Every time you see one of these fat lines here, you've got a main keyframe. And remember, you're on 8 drawings on 4s, which is a total of 32 frames just for the smoke, because these guys are moving backwards. In your playback, the little holes that you've got are actually moving backwards. So I just go back in there and look at this drawing that I'm giving you right here, and use this process, use this method of getting the smoke to move first and then do the holes so that they continue to move on their own pathway. And then I think the idea would be is that, yeah, they can be holes, but just because of the nature of what you've got here aesthetically, I think that these could be darker. So think about these being shadows and just going in there and animating them first, getting the motion working correctly, but then go ahead and make these just shadows. And remember, you will need this one. Do something like that. And then if you want holes, it's going to be easier for you to put them here and think about what's happening. So in this little circle here, there's like a little extra, a circle that you don't see there. There's another one here, and then a little mini one here, and then a big one right here. So what we're doing is we're looking at like puffs of clouds, kind of thing. So you're finishing the puff of the cloud that would be the part that you don't see here. And this is a clue to where the hole would be. And so in your first key, you might have a hole that's right here. And it's okay to align it with this, and then align it with this one too, so that there's a hole here. And then you will need this hole right here to get it off the screen. And I think that that would be an improvement for all of these things here. All right, I don't know if you have lightning in there yet, but remember that the lightning starts from one place. It's looking for the path of least resistance. And even with this series of lines right here, I am thinking aesthetically that I want it to have a certain look, a certain dynamic to it. So start by getting the core and just looking at those lines and saying, yeah, that looks like a path of least resistance. Then the energy gets away from it. It gets away from it. It gets away from it. So you can see it's like, it's searching for its place. And then give it a couple other little feet. And again, with the variety, right? You've got the big ones, now you're doing the medium ones. And then you're going to put in some small and some very small. So I think that this would be an improvement just for the lightning. All right, so I think that then in this composition, if one of these projectiles hits the water, then your water splash is good. This is good for a mud, right? I also think that, and I think that I'm doing this just for everyone's sake, that for whatever application you're in, instead of just a big bright blue background, it does look like there's a gradient on this. Go from a darker blue. So give yourself a darker blue up in the upper atmosphere, and then a lighter blue more towards the horizon. And I think that that could go for this little plane here, this little dirt plane that you've got. So you could do the same thing, but remember the rules of atmospheric perspective, that in the dirt, you're going to go backwards. You're going to go from a dark brown to a lighter brown gradient more towards the horizon. All right, so remember that if this is dirt, then don't give yourself a straight line in the horizon. You know, give yourself more of an organic form back there, other mountain ranges or what have you. And it's just those two little corrections right there. All right, so then aesthetics. The idea would be is if you're looking, or style, if you're looking for the stylistic thing here, then just start looking at the details and go back in there. And it's like, I think it would be a little inconceivable for this mountain to just have this little outline on it and then stop like it was, again, a color form. So I think that the thing that you want to do is maybe make this line nice and dark. And then think about what we did with the lightning. We just did straight lines. So give yourself more geometry here, just perfectly straight lines that make up the direction that you've got for the exterior of this volcano. Really thick, straight lines, big, short, medium, small. And the same thing goes here. Make these perfectly straight, perfectly straight. And when it comes down to here, instead of doing this, just break these that they were like this. And then underneath the volcano shape itself, find a place maybe down here where, again, it's a little bit more amorphous, where you can create a shape and paint this with a gradient that goes from maybe this rust color. So I'm going to say rust like this. and that the gradient goes from the rust into this dark brown color here. So that's a DBR, dark brown color. So that there's more of a gradual transition between the mountain and this ground plane down here. Does that make sense? And I think that you just use the same thing again. So in the style, again, you're looking straight, 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 and then do the same thing. Just do a couple of lines that break the thing here. And then, so this one's really close. This little mountain's really close here, but delete these lines here. And then, yeah, just use an invisible line here that gives you your gradient. And again, this one is going to be, it's behind it. So this rust color here would be a lighter rust color that has a gradient into this dark brown. It's going to be light brown to dark brown. So this is going to be a light rust into a light brown. All right, and then I think you've got an open space here. I think that you can definitely add in some sort of clouds. And remember, from your rules of perspective then, is if this cloud is here, oops, sorry, then any clouds in the distance back here are going to follow along. And this is just the rules of art, right? And you can make a variation there if you want, but I think that that would help. And getting these clouds here to move is just easy, just track them. But I think that would definitely help your composition. Even to the point where the gradient in the sky is dark brown to lighter, or dark blue to lighter blue, and you've got the volcano smoke happening here, you could have more of a far away smoke that is from an earlier episode that's really just not moving. And then look at the composition. You might even have room for another one that's just not quite moving, like that. All right, so let me play this. And go back. All right, so I see your projectile is hitting the water here. Because this water is really up front into camera, you know, I think your cone should be like this. And then because of that, it's right into camera. So then give yourself just a really cool water. I think that you've got the motion and the timing are okay, but you've got a chance here to play with just a really great water shape. And remember that this zoom tool is not the best tool for drawing. And I'm trying my hardest right here just to get it right. But I think that this gives you a chance to really play with what the author of this class really intended, was to make this water just magnificent, just make it really beautiful right here. All right, and I think that you do want to play with perspective here, so that if you do have 1, 2, 3, and all the way up to 8 copies of the main smoke here, you can see the smoke is moving backwards, right? It's almost like flashing between these two positions here because you didn't have it come out of the volcano. But then I think that you should play with a really big mud bubble here, and then maybe a smaller one, and then super small ones back here. So again, just a little bit more variety of shape. And then I think that just in terms of the composition, you owe it to your audience to do something different between the mud and the water. And so I think that what you can do is you can draw a line like this, but then remember what we just did with the volcano. So go back in and make everything straight. Everything's a straight line. You're starting with the more organic shape, but then just make everything more of a straight line. You're following the rules of perspective when you put those lines in there. But then you can go and just kind of say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make this really geometrical. All right, so those are my comments on just the stylistic part of it. Do you want to take a screen grab of that? Got it?
Yep, got it.
I mean, it's crazy, all the lines I drew right there, and it looks practically scientific, and it is. I see that you do have lightning in there. Let me just see the lightning. Yeah, I think the lightning is really okay, but remember that lightning starts from one place and ends in another. I think it might be easier for you to do it just from a contact point on the smoke to another contact point on the smoke. And remember, you need a flash frame. You need either a big matte glow behind this, and I think it's far enough away that you don't need the flash frames to be the entire white black in your shot, but I think that that would be an improvement. Okay, thank you, Ryan. I'm just going to check something here. On Wednesday night, Zoom was doing something funny, and it put everyone in a waiting room instead of telling me that they were actually waiting. It doesn't look like anyone's waiting. Okay. All right, so before we do anything else, I thought what I would, so I see that there's 3 tornadoes, that's good. I thought what I would, before I did anything else, I wanted to just remind everyone that there are some really cool things out there for people sharing on social media. So I don't think you need to do the animation for this little guy, this little strange troll or whatever. But that's animation is really not that hard. But there's so many cool things here. Look at the cracks in the ground. And even though this entire animation, special effects animation, is procedural, then but look at the great aesthetics he's got. Look at the little shapes of the blue decay. So this little blue decay right there is just really indicating that whoever was doing the work in Unity here was really paying attention to what those shapes looked like. This little light behind him is glowing. There's some little like energy, plasma energy coming off his left hand. There's a spark right here. It's like a 4-point star, and the lateral part of the 4-point star has a darker blue shape to it that becomes the projectile. And the projectile is just kind of like a jellyfish shape that kind of just moves straight forward. It starts and it doesn't move, it doesn't change shape. And that would be kind of cool if you would have thought about just that little jellyfish that is turquoise that gradients into darker blue. You can see it moving right there. I think it might be more interesting if that little jellyfish shape was more smaller in the beginning, and then a little bit, and then it gets as big as it is at the end here. There's some really cool plasma that's at the head of the glow that carries out into these little shapes here. There's the little green filaments that decay. There's just some really cool stuff just with that one all by itself, just with that little example. This one I thought is interesting, but I think that this is probably what tempted the director of our class to really get in there and say, you know what, these shapes are they're only okay. They could be really improved. You see that there's a shape to these, maybe a total of 6 different spinning shapes right here. But I think that there could be a glow, there could be extra little shapes on there. These little sparks are okay, but I think that using a bit of transparency, a little bit more glow, maybe some different colors in there. So this one's not perfect. It's interesting, just in terms of what you would be using for a plasma blast or something like that. This is just the main board, I think. And I like this one. I think this was definitely, let's see if he's saying, he's using it in Unity. And so you can see that he's following the blast point with his mouse right there. And this is exactly what I was talking about, the chance for you to play with shape and styles. These little sparks are square when they're purple, and they're round when they're red. I think that's really cool. This little blast here is really simple. It's just a growing sphere that goes from really small to medium to big and then back again. I think the projectiles are kind of cool. These little blast marks on the wall are okay. These are 6-point stars when they're blue. You know, it makes it end up looking very much like snowflakes. So I think that this is interesting, just in terms of what you can do with blasting and using some style. So I think it's really interesting to use these little square shapes right there.
Yeah, that one's the best. That one's really cool.
Yeah.
There was one with triangles too. That was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So I think that you could just definitely play with the idea of shapes when because you're right now, today's big thing is aesthetics. Today's thing is just style and art and aesthetics. Let me redo attendance here. Rob and Javon showed up. Okay, let's take a look at this final. Oh, look, there's something here with fire. Rob, fire. Let's see how this looks in LMS. So I'm going to pull this and loop it.
I don't think it was me. That's the same one.
Is it?
Yeah, no, I didn't update.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. That was from a while ago, right?
Yeah. I put my tornado in there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look at that in a minute. All right, Javon.
Yes.
How are you?
I think the new one is the one under it.
Oh,
Yeah,
this one? Okay.
I just uploaded that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, just for animation sense, I'm downloading these.
Okay.
All right, I think it looks pretty good, Javon. Maybe just a little things to comment on.
Yeah.
And remember, when we were doing fire, one of the things that I was very passionate about was just saying, hey, you know, I did neon for years, right? You can see by my background. And my fires were blue. you have this mustard colored fire, which is, it's okay.
Yeah, I could
But remember
probably
that it can
change the
be any
color.
color you want. So I think that maybe what you can put in here is a hotter core.
Okay. Like a highlight type of if I
Well,
guess
no,
effect.
it's just the thing that defines the actual thing that's burning.
Okay.
And there is science behind this in art. It's like blue is magnesium, green is copper, natural gas is like blue, wood is yellow. There's all kinds of association with whatever is burning has a
Right.
certain kind of color to it. So you can see what I'm doing here, right?
Yeah.
You've got enough energy to pull up a couple of flyaway sparks that go up even further. And I think the key is right here. You've got this
Yeah.
little shape right here that needs to continue upwards.
Okay.
And it can decay to about right there. And I think this one too, this little widget right here can
Yeah.
definitely continue upwards. And remember, when we introduced fire, I recommended to explore some sort of back and forth kind of motion. And you really see that in these exterior forms here. So if this little shape right here, you can see it right there, right? And you
Yeah.
can have it go from this position into this position, and then into this position where the overall drift of your wind is from left to right. And then I think all you need to do is just add a little bit and you get that. This little shape
Okay.
right here,
Yeah.
this little shape, it's big enough that it should have a decay that also continues into embers a little higher, something like that.
Okay.
So I think that this is fairly successful. I think you just need to add to it.
Okay.
Even to the point where if you were saying, hey, you know what? I like this little shape that I've got here, right?
Yeah.
And so give yourself maybe another one that's on the right or on the left side here. This is bigger, and then see what it would look like if you did this over the top of it. So this node animates into this node, into this node, right? And then your breakdown positions are here. So this part right here, as an animator, you would say, hey, let's take this shape and pull it on our next breakdown into this position right on top of the fire itself before it gets over here, and just see what it would be like to add that to it. So you would definitely get this crossover circular motion here, and then just carry it through to this shape. And then here, I think it would be kind of cool to just go around this shape and then over to here before it becomes an ember. And then just aesthetically, this could be a little bigger. So just try that. This is just an add-on as well. It might make your fire just that much more spectacular.
Okay.
And it's easier because I think that you've got the main thing working.
Yeah.
And this would just be fun. Now the fun really starts pretty well. So having that same theory, you have got a really cool shape right here. See that shape that I'm kind of copying right there?
Yeah. Thanks.
This is
took
big.
forever.
This is
I said that part kind of took a while for me to do.
Well, I think that you're successful with it. I think it's pretty good. I like this, but it's a medium size, right?
Yeah.
So that means that it definitely needs to break apart and decay and become more embers. And so when you're looking at this,
Yeah.
I think that you've got a pretty good torch, just what it is for whatever it is right outside the box, right?
Yeah.
And I think that just these little additions will make it just that much better. So once again, I think just a hotter core, and maybe change your colors a bit too. Mustard is kind of strange.
Okay.
See if you can make it like, try blue.
Blue. Okay. I'll try.
Yeah, try blue. Blue is just a cool color for fire.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen black fire yet, but it's possible. right, you
Yeah,
want to
that
take a
might be
screenshot of that? Let me know.
Purple would be cool too.
Purple might be really cool.
Yeah, purple would
purple.
be pretty cool.
Okay.
You know, purple, light purple, and then a hot purple for the core.
Yeah.
Try something like that. All right, you got a screenshot?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Javon.
Thank you.
All right, and then for, oops, sorry.
Oh, I
All your
also
other
have a,
pieces, just make
I have
sure
a
you get those.
tornado that I submitted earlier.
Okay.
Also,
Okay,
it's not all the way finished, but it's pretty far along.
okay,
And I also submitted a volcano.
okay.
Yeah.
So I see, yeah, there's some things to talk about there, okay. Okay. Let's see how LMS plays this. Let me pull it. Oops.
I might have to change the aspect ratio, but
Well, yeah, we're doing this for games and everything is at least 16:9.
yeah,
It's just a pretty good ratio to start with.
it's
And make
fine. I
sure
can
that
change it.
you just get caught up. Yeah, this aspect ratio is Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're pretty far along here. I think that you've got smoke, lightning, rain. You got that strange little thing of lava right there, which is fine.
Yeah, could use some work.
Oh, I see what you've got. This is a little lightning strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that, yeah, just see if you can get this little artifact fixed.
Okay.
See a little artifact right there?
In the smoke?
Yeah, see it right there?
Oh yeah.
There's like a little dot that's an extraneous little dot.
Yeah.
And I think that if you really wanted to, this is a good example just to explain kind of what I was talking about when we were doing the initial explosion and then the subsequent lightning, is that your lightning is right there, and I think it's fine. It's not like this typical lightning kind of shape, right? And I think that that's fine, but I think that you could make it a little brighter.
Okay.
I think that just because you've got enough of it that it almost looks like rain.
Mm.
And then you know, I don't mind these little strange lines here.
Yeah, I was trying to
It's a
do.
stylistic thing, and I think it's okay.
I was trying to show the like lava flowing, I guess.
Sure. But I think that you are confusing your aesthetic because you've got some black shapes.
Mhm.
That end about right there,
Right.
and then they don't continue. So it's like, what I would do is I would make this a continuous loop. And I think
Okay.
that what you might want to do is just try to get these little black shapes. Just add these little black shapes down here. See how that looks?
Right.
So these are black. These little U-shaped things I'm drawing right here are black. And keep the other ones as the yellow. And then I think that what you want to do is maybe just really take these shapes right here for the
Yeah.
highlight and really bold, make them bold. Don't be
Okay.
afraid to just make them bold. And remember that if the lightning is causing this much of a flash that I think that you could really borrow your volcano shape on that frame.
Okay.
Everything. And instead of doing a white frame, black frame, white frame for the flash, then just replace this entire frame with this shape, whatever this is.
With the edge, okay.
Just make
Like
it
that.
really, really bold. I think that you could even get the clouds back there and be as bold as you can possibly be with just, so instead of those little shapes that you've got right here, which are just a little too subtle, is be a little bit more bold. And on the frames that are those flash frames, just replace it with this is white, right?
Yeah.
And so that's this one. And then on the black frame, take this entire thing and reverse it. So just do the
Okay.
reverse. This is a reverse. So everything will be white. And then these guys will be black. And then use this one in this position again. And I think you'll be a lot more happy with it. As it
Okay.
is right now, it's okay. It's like very acceptable. But just those little fixes will make it much better.
Okay.
Or you want to take
Thanks.
a screenshot of that?
Yeah, sure. Let me do that. Okay, got it.
Okay. You know, right now it's in like the B plus range for sure. But those little fixes that I just mentioned will push it up a bit.
Okay, gotcha.
You're doing it, Javon. You're doing it.
Yeah, it's taking a while. I have a tornado also.
Yep, I'm going there. All right, I got 3 tornadoes in there. All right, Joseph's first. All right, Joseph, I think that this is looking pretty good.
I'm sorry, I rendered the extra frames by accident. I didn't mean to put it at the end.
What did you do?
I rendered the white frames at the end because my layout is
Oh, no, I'm not worried
longer
about
than the
that.
actual
I think
animation.
you rendered it backwards or whatever. The smoke is the clouds are moving right, but your projectiles are moving backwards. How could your projectiles moving backwards?
I intended for them to be drawn into the tornado instead of shooting outwards.
You wanted the projectiles to be sucked into the tornado?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll buy that. So if I could make a suggestion for you. All right, so I understand that there's a delay because you rendered frames at the end. I would say, first of all, you need to paint this and just get it ready. I did not get any notification for what the deadline was for the spring show. Does anybody know? Rob, do you have a clue? No, you don't care.
No, I'm not sure. I think it's up though.
Yeah, okay, so it might be over already. So my suggestion, first of all, I think your motion is okay, Rob. Sorry, this is Joseph, right?
Yeah, no, this one's way better than mine.
So I think that what you still need to do though is you need to add these little ribbons of clouds up here. And then another layer in the deep foreground. And those should be moving more slowly. Remember my little key that I drew for you, right? And this is the whole trick to getting that volcano to work correctly, the tornado to work correctly, is that this is 8. And then the ones around the middle can be 4 frames. They can also be 8 around the middle if you want. But that the further you go away from the center of the core of the tornado, you can definitely break this up into 16s or 24s. And so it's just a question of numbers right here about how many frames you want these little ribbons of smoke, of clouds to move, especially if it's looping. So having said that, I think that if you want your debris to come into it, I think that's fine. But then I think that you should have some debris that is flowing around the middle. So these guys are moving counterclockwise around the middle. And then having said that, I think that it should loop again. Just bring a couple of little particles, whatever they are, that are moving with the clouds. Okay? And then, paint it and get your aesthetics. Make sure that you just think about something graphically, maybe for the background, trees, telephone pole, right? Houses, a farm, a factory, whatever it is. Just get something in the composition. Just get something in your composition so that it reads like you are done with it and you haven't forgotten about anything. All right, you want to take a screenshot of that?
Yeah. Okay.
Javon.
Yes. Yeah, it's not all the way done yet, but
I think it's getting there. I'm making marks right here. Yeah, I think that you're onto something here. I like the bold black against the cream color,
thanks.
the butter color. I think it's fine.
I was going for a dust type of, I guess,
Sure.
whirlwind.
Yeah, I completely buy it. But I think that you want to try a couple of things just to polish this.
Okay.
And that would be that you've got these little cool shapes right here that are moving counterclockwise, and you've also got them corkscrewing upwards. So this shape right here goes into this shape and then comes up to here.
Yeah.
And then it comes up to here, but you don't have anything over here.
Right.
So get it to corkscrew around and then even come up here. So yeah, I think that you just need to make sure that you continue this corkscrewing shape right here so that this part's missing, this part's missing, and then the couple of drawings here that continue to make it move counterclockwise.
Right.
I think that you can work on a little bit of debris, and I think that that'll be okay.
I was actually gonna do some like clouds in the, I guess, upper atmosphere.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. You're beating me to your own punch. So, and I think that you've got some like really kind of cool style happening here.
Thanks.
And then just remember my key, right?
Right.
So when you're doing this, don't torture yourself. Just understand that you're looking down on it and counterclockwise rotation always, always, always reads as a storm. And so it's just a really easy task for you to say, hey, look at this ribbon of smoke right here. This
Right.
ribbon of smoke right here, it's really far away from the tornado. And you would represent that in your map, like right here. And you would say, okay, how, test this on a different level. If you wanted to move this around with 8 different drawings, then
Yeah.
put it on its own level. But 8 drawings on 2s is only 16 frames. And so that would be way too fast.
Yeah.
8 drawings on 4s would be 32 frames. And that's only a second 0.25. So that means that this little ribbon of cloud right here would go from this position all the way around in 1.25 seconds. And that's just crazy. That would be way too fast. So on 8s, you would have 64 frames. And now you're talking, because then it would take 2 seconds to go from here all the way around. So try 8 drawings on 8s.
Okay.
And remember that that is about the upper limit of limited style animation.
Okay, gotcha.
And then see what it looks like, because if you're not going to just draw this one shape on this level, you would have all of these shapes.
Right.
And this is the map. This is just the downside that you're looking down on it. And let's say that you just get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say that you just have 8 shapes. 8 shapes on 8s going counterclockwise. Then it might, this shape right here might get picked up over here, and it might, this little key might be just fine right here. Give yourself some sort of horizon.
Right.
And and in this instance right here, it might be more interesting to just work with some sort of graphic shape that represents, I don't know, the background or whatever it is.
Right.
And you're welcome to borrow just this idea, because it might be cool to just paint this and this like a dark or black or a very, very dark gray. And then instead of just trying to figure out what the composition looks like, just replace this background with like a medium gray.
Okay.
And then I think that you've got black and yellow, and I'm going to look at my color wheel. So try to work on some core that is behind the black, but on top of the yellow, that is a red color.
Like a highlight kind of.
Just like, yeah, a highlight.
Okay.
And then I think the thing that'll bring it into the 22nd century is try to get in some blue lightning.
Blue lightning.
Or, you know what? Try black lightning. That might be really cool.
Okay.
Try some black lightning.
Black lightning. All right.
Black lightning on both sides. And then don't forget your flash frames.
Right.
But just try some black lightning. That might really punch it. And remember, your flash frames can be just kind of what we were talking about with Ryan. They can just be the whole frame, white, black, white, or it can just be the opposite of whatever these shapes are. And remember that those are just flash frames. So it's white, black, white. And these 2 frames are together. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I think that that'll punch it. No, you want to take a screenshot of that now?
Yeah. All right, got it.
Got it. All right, Rob. All right, so obviously I think that, you're not done with it. So let me ask you, what are you thinking here? What is your next thing you're gonna do?
I need to, well, I'm going to cut the top. Obviously, it's different lengths and everything because there was going to be that swirling kind of cloud above it. So you wouldn't really see all that. So I'm probably going to chop the top where I want it and then start doing the spiraling clouds above it. But that was kind of my next thing. But I wanted to show you before I did that because I feel like I'm already kind of a little off track here with just like.
No, I
spinning
think
stuff.
that it's close.
I also have not obviously finished all the little particles and stuff spinning around.
Right. Well, for one thing, I think it's got some interesting motion to it, but because I don't think it loops. So whatever your first frame is, how many frames do you have here? Do you have 16? No, you have 32 frames.
Yeah. No, originally, see, that's another thing I want to talk about. Originally, it wasn't gonna loop. It was just kind of, I wanted it to move, like kind of like a tornado. But I was
Right.
like, let's not get ahead of ourselves here, because then I have to make the clouds move above and all this other stuff. So like, let's just try to get it stationary. So then I
Yeah.
kind of didn't get the looping thing. So I'm trying to figure that out now, how to just kind of make it look like it's looping stationary.
So remember that in any animation, that the idea of getting whatever this frame, because this is frame 32, and 32 is actually frame 31 if it's on twos,
Mhm.
right? And so your main in between would be 17, 9, 25, 29, 21, 15, 13, 7. So whatever your keys are,
Yeah.
is that you've got to get back into one. And so
Yeah.
your chart is that you go from one into frame one again. And so your whole trick then is that you're going to do a half breakdown on 19 or whatever it is, your main breakdown. So that means that you're looking at the frames that are leading up, going back into one are actually 25, 27, 29, and 31. So for whatever these frames are right here, just make sure that you get those frames to lead back into one. 25, 27, 29, 31, lead back into frame number one.
Okay.
Your animation, so you should know this.
Yeah.
And the whole trick then, especially in Toon Boom, is to copy your main keyframe into the position that would be frame 33. And then you just delete this, you cut this off, or you don't even render it. And then that way your loop is correct, because right now it doesn't loop correctly. And then you might find that just with this little tweak on this keyframe and the breakdowns and the one in between or two in betweens that go around it, that's just a really easy fix, right? You've just tweaked 4 drawings and you've got it. What I would recommend is that, again, looking down on your tornado, is that you've got counterclockwise motion. And so for us, that counterclockwise motion in the upper atmosphere actually looks like it's clockwise. And so even just drawing those 2 shapes, then just instead of trimming it, cover it up.
I see. Okay.
Cover it up with a series of big ribbons of cloud smoke. You know, and look at your main layout. And then see how that looks. So right now I'm just kind of establishing a mat that goes on top of it. And then in the background, these would be registered to it. So for wherever frames these wind up on, those are the ones that are, you don't want these lines to be on top of your worm, your tornado worm, right? I think at that point that just bolster this out, make this big, and you can do whatever you'd like. I think that you can do like what Ryan did and bring particles in because it's sucking it in. It's like, right?
Yeah.
And then you can have projectiles moving away. It's a pretty good fix. You know, one thing I might disagree with you is just and I don't think you've got a lot of them, but I'm not quite convinced about this radical 45-degree angle that you've got on these little stripy clouds. So if you wanted to do that, what I would recommend is just making them more in true perspective. And you can even see that the suggestion that I'm making here improves the overall aesthetic.
Yeah, there weren't I know what you mean. I was kind of feeling that too when I was doing it, and I feel like I did like one or two of them that way, and I just started following all those lines as I kept going frame by frame. And then when I played it back, I'm like, that's way too steep.
So what I think that might be in the easiest way to really adjust this is to give yourself whatever perspective grid that you think you might have. And I'm just guessing that this was,
you know, that could be it too. I put my perspective grid like at a tilt, like it was going to be like this kind of cool angle.
Oh, like a Dutch angle.
Yeah, and that might have been.
But I'm not feeling that. I'm not feeling that. I think that you could do that, but I don't think that. I think it's just not reading like you were paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Are you in Toon Boom?
Not this. I just didn't Procreate, but I was going to send it to Toon Boom and then kind of like touch it up.
Well, one thing that you could do, and I want you to just kind of think about this kind of artistic logic almost, is that this is your grid, right? And Toon Boom is a vector graphic, so that it should be a SVG. It's scalable vector graphics, right? So you do this, you get the clouds moving, you get these things fixed, you get the loop working a little better. So that means that you tweak drawings 29, 27, 25, 23. You just tweak those so that the loop works better. You get some lightning in there. So you make your special effects professor happy, right? And so you get, and then you get these clouds where, and you just do it and you follow your key and it's looping correctly. And okay, good. So then render a QuickTime movie and then put it into After Effects and then just rotate it if you want a Dutch angle in After Effects.
Oh, okay.
But you got to make sure that you're not cutting off.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't super set on that. I just thought it looked cool, and then as I was kind of getting into it, I wasn't really. So I kind of like the flat thing you got going. Like the regular perspective looks actually better anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because originally, like I said, I wanted it to move, like the tornado was going to come at us. So I thought the Dutch angle would make it look like kind of cool looking, like sporadic, like something crazy was about to happen.
Well, you could do that in After Effects too. You can get like a little, but then remember, it's not going to loop correctly if you do that. If you try to scale it up, it won't work correctly. I remember that when I introduced the tornado, I told all of you that in one of the first 2 or 3 classes that I taught at the Academy for this class, I had students do that. You know, they were working on this tornado shape that was here, and then it kind of came out to here, and then it became this like unwielding mess, and it took forever for them to get their tornado project done, just because getting this core to move from, you know, a simple shape up into perspective was like really challenging to them.
Yeah.
And it worked, you know, it does work, but I think that my mistake was not paying attention to this being a game-oriented class, and that this was much more cinematic. Just the idea of trying to bring a tornado up into camera like this is very, very ambitious. It can be done. You know, you get your tornado to go on a wiggly path, and it can be done, but it's just that it doesn't give you a chance to play with all the other cool things that you see, especially like in the board that I posted. Yeah, I think that the one thing I wanted to mention is that in cinema, this is called a Dutch angle, and you've probably heard that before.
Mhm.
Do you know why it's called a Dutch angle?
I did. I can't remember now. I remember someone
Because
told me
the American cinematographers and directors were trying to borrow from German expressionism.
that.
And German expressionism is like this really cool thing. Look, you can tell I've that I've searched it before. It's just this really wonderful, dark, crazy, mysterious, gothic, almost, there's all kinds of really cool references to German expressionism. It's just really bold, very daring. And if you go back and look at it, it's like just after World War I, right in between the world wars. Well, I can't say that now, between the First and Second World War, not the Third World War. But the American cinematographers were trying to make fun of German expressionism. And in German, the word for German is Deutsch. Deutsches Land. And they were making fun of Deutsch expressionism, and they just bungled up their pronunciation and it became Dutch angle instead of Deutsch angle. It's like the stupid American cinematographers. So it doesn't have anything to do with the Dutch. It has everything to do with German expressionism. And so I think that you could try that.
I'm
I
just gonna
think
try
that
to get it going.
maybe some other time though.
Yeah, not now.
But yeah, they were making fun of German expressionism.
Dang. What's funny is I don't think I did know that. I think someone else told me something completely different, and it was a teacher. It was a professor. I
Yeah.
don't think that's what it was. German expression.
All right, you have your volcano, right, Rob?
Yeah, it should be in there.
I already saw it. Let me just take one quick look.
I still have some more stuff I want to do to it, but I just wanted to get it up there so you could see it. Oh, well, maybe it's not.
Oh yeah, it's just not in this folder. Where did you put your volcano?
Oh, midterm progress, probably. The MT progress. There it is. No, one.
Oh yeah, okay, I got that. Are you still working on that?
This is the old one. This isn't what that was.
No,
there should be another
I
version.
remember, but
There it is.
so is this one done? Oh, you know what? I made comments for you in our last class.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you were absent last week.
Yeah.
So I made a comment just about this island looks like it's floating.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the way you've got the light hitting everything. The animation I thought was working pretty well. But go back and look at those comments, because I made some comment about this looking like it was floating. And I think I also made a comment about your water. I was stressing the idea of it being cone shaped, and you're using that reflection thing. And you're getting in trouble with me. So yeah, go back and look at that. I made some comments, put some notes in there for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So let's do this file that we have for today. We have one file. And then we'll take a break. Okay, so with this, everyone, Rob included, what I was making a comment on was last week, I made a suggestion for everyone that because this is in the game department, that you can, if you want, now it's going to take me a moment to find this, make the effects all completely separate. And this is some really cool stylization right here on this one. I'm going to just hold that one out for a second. And it was just a remark that I made about Oh, come on, Pinterest, wake up. There's some pretty cool stuff in this board, you know, you could spend your whole day there. I didn't think it was this far down. It was just like a three-dimensional level view of not any one game in particular, and each one of the separate quadrants had its own little special effect in there. I'm having a redraw problem. I'm probably running out of memory here. Remember, Rob, that water is supposed to be 3D. Look, this guy right here did one in wood for us. You know, and it could be that he just did that in Maya and rendered it with wood texture. But just reminding all of you that you everything that you draw really should be, you should be thinking of it three-dimensionally. I don't know where it went. I didn't think it was this far down. All right, one more little click here, and yeah, I don't know where it went. So again, what I was thinking was just you break it up into little sections: water droplets, pixie dust, lava. What else are you going to put in here? You have breaking glass, Joseph. You have your orb.
I'm not sure how much animation you wanted for the final. As
Well, I think
forgot.
that the idea would be is that in the last part of the class here, that we added in just a couple of things, and one was shattering glass, beams, right? And the orb. So just from the outline of our class, that your explosion, your orb, your beams, shattering glass and rock should be part of your final.
I could change some of the things, because I was going off what you were showing last week, and I wanted to do something isometric as well. I could change one of the levels to have because originally I wanted a beam firing across as well, and I wasn't sure whether we were going to do it for the final, or I could just use I don't want to say like older animation, but like animation we've done previously from the class. I could have a beam fire across from one of the upper levels, and I could have I could change one into breaking glass and explosion as well.
Yeah, I think you need to add an orb and the breaking glass for sure.
Is the orb different from the plasma?
Last week, yeah. And we're gonna continue that after our break today.
Okay.
All right, so I think that a couple of suggestions for you would just be just to be a little bit more clear about just the idea. So you've got the idea of orbs and glass, right? You know, I like the idea of a flag waving. That's kind of a cool thing. And last week I showed everyone the flag that is more of a ribbon, Rob. And it had like a little wave in it. And what you end up doing is you end up animating this little S shape. See this little S shape right here? So you animate the little S shape as keys going forwards. And here, this S shape is just flattened out into like a crease. So these are your keys, these are your nodes. You animate the little S shape going out to the tip of a banner flag. And then here you use a circle 8 for the tip of the flag, and you just animate the tip as it comes out here, and it looks great. You know, your arc of motion is, the wind is pretty steady, and it's really fun just to see this working. Again, it's total 8 drawings. So if you can add something like that up here, that would be great. What is this thing, Joseph?
No, I just wanted a character up there because it looked very plain to just have like my top empty.
Okay. So I think I like this. Make sure your water droplet is big. Make sure your mud bubble is big enough that we can see it. You know, I like the idea of pixie dust here. It just goes on and off. But I think if you were going to have an orb come in, I think that what you might want to do is try to get like this region right here broken up into 2 different big windows, and then just have your orb come from behind and break the glass, and then hover right here. And then it sends a beam to like a tiny little frog that's just sitting there. Right? So you just draw a little frog, and he explodes. So your frog explodes into the dragon. Got me?
Yep.
And then once you've got the dragon, then do some really cool smoke coming out of the dragon's nose. That could be really fun, right? And so remember that this is just an explosion. The frog literally just becomes the dragon. And you can do a little squash and stretch if you want. You can squish him down, and then you can stretch the dragon out. So this like radiates out, so the dragon gets really big. And this is an extreme. And then he settles like it was just a bouncing ball. In your animation, so you should know how to do this. So he squashes, becomes the back to the frog shape, extreme out here for the stretch, and then settle back into the dragon that's about this shape. So it goes down and then back out and then in again for like a squash and stretch. And then once that happens, then do this little smoke. So I like the idea of this orb breaking the glass, but then I think that the orb should become sentient enough that it should send another beam to this treasure chest. And then it might be really fun to just do, just have the treasure chest open and maybe just have a bunch of stars that float up and then disappear. So it's not pixie dust, it's like floating stars. Did you ever play Pokemon Go?
Yeah.
So you know when you put your buddy on the map
Mhm.
and you get a heart?
Yep.
So you give him a candy, you get a heart. And then if you take a picture of him, you get a heart. And then if you play with him, quote unquote, play with him, you have to rub his belly.
Mhm.
And if you're rubbing his belly, then the little stars, they emanate from the center. They come out from the center. And they start small, and then they get bigger, and then they dissipate. And the fact is that they just kind of radiate from the center. And you could try that here. You could try these that they just kind of come out and disappear. So use the buddy stars from Pokemon Go as an idea for what's inside the treasure chest. It could also be something completely different. You can do whatever you want. It might be fun to just have like the Holy Grail, right? Or a magic sword that has like this cool particle effects on it. That could be really cool. Try something like that. You know, treasure like a crown, right? So like a king's crown. And they all have this like magical, mystical glow around them. Pixie dust. All right, do you want to take a screenshot of that?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, got it. All right, so let's take a break. Come back at 11 and we'll continue talking about glass. This was from last week. And orbs. So take a break, kind of final day. You will have a couple extra days just to do final touch-ups. Right, and so I basically did that for Millicent because you're all here except her. All right, so having said that, what I wanted to do is just talk about aesthetics for a second. And what I wanted to do is just go back to the main board. And so we started with this today, and last week we talked about breaking glass. And so let me switch the trend over to this one because I think it's really good. And just repeating a couple of things just about the essence of breaking glass. I like this one. This reads as plate glass. This reads as plate glass. If you were to ever see car glass breaking, you know that safety glass just breaks into little squares. So even with this, the most interesting ones come from a radial point in the center. So there's the very center, and then everything radiates out from the center point. And then some of them have these little unique ripples or patterns in them. You know, it's interesting. But some glass breaks into little squares, and that's just really not interesting. Some glass breaks into just thousands of little pieces, and that's just going to be a pain to animate. If you're in Unity or Maya and you've got a procedure behind it, you've got the game engine behind helping you design it. I think that you're in an okay place with that. But again, the director originally wanted to make sure that what we were thinking of is looking at some just really cool shapes. This looks like it's a GIF. Hold on. Well, it's not moving fast enough, but the idea would be is that we're looking at this. We're looking at some really cool shapes here. And what I always like to just remind all of you is to just do your research. Talk about the aesthetics. Look at anything. if we were talking about smoke, and this vector graphics right here has got smoke being red, yellow, orange, and white, which are generally reserved in our eye for fire. Smoke is generally gray or black or brown, it's acrid, or if it's steam, it could be white, right? So it's interesting that this is kind of playing with your eye, that this smoke is red. And the idea of aesthetics is like, well, hey, I think if it were more smoke colored, it might look more like smoke. If you've got a really cool graphic of a skull and you've got this green plasma behind it, it's going to read as plasma. Green instantly reads as plasma, but plasma can be kind of any color too. So when we look at this little GIF right here of fire, there's some really cool shapes in there. But now use your discerning eye. And when we look at this, say, do I see the variety of shapes? I see big, medium, I see medium and small. So I don't see like the medium small, and it's good, but I think it could be perfected. So compare these two. Like this fire right here has a big volume on the bottom, and then medium small. So I think that this one could use some small shapes. All right, so that's what I kind of wanted to talk about for the minutes here, is just aesthetics. And looking at anything and seeing both aesthetics and a good silhouette. So this is a good little sequence for fire right here. And again, there are tons of different fires: candle flames, torches, campfires, forest fires. There's all kinds of different fires, and fire can be very stylistic. But this sequence here, it does have an ice cream cone kind of look to it. Does it pass the muster of the variety of shapes? I think it's getting pretty close. I think that these shapes right here are nice and pointy. There's some curls in there. I think that's working pretty well. If we look at the main board and we're just looking at, let's just say this one, this little, oops, I opened it in a new window, it's fine. So this one's interesting to me. I think I posted it just the other day because it's just so fast, right? If we're looking at a GIF at 60 frames per second, this is basically maybe 6 drawings. And at 60 FPS on 2s, that means it would be 12 over 60, which would be a little more than 1/6 of a second, which is about right. So it could be 8 drawings on 2s for 60 frames per second. And I think I can see 8 drawings in there, but nothing more. No more than 8 drawings here. So this artist, this animator, has done a tornado in 8 drawings on 2s at 60 FPS. But I also think that I see 1, 2, 3, 4 main shapes in the tornado. I do see that counterclockwise rotation, but I don't see medium or small or very small shapes of the clouds. It's successful, but I think it could be better by having a more variety of shapes in there. Again, we're just talking aesthetics. All right, so having looked at that, what I wanted to do is talk about orbs. And so let's just trend this for orbs. And here you don't even see the orb. It's just emanating concentric circles with the little particles at the end. I think it's interesting. It's coming out of a cannon, a plasma cannon over here. These are more orb-like. And so we look at this one, definitely VFX so we've got a sphere with a 4-point star, but then we've got these little wispy tendrils out here. So they're not coming off the center of this orb like it was a blast. They're meandering around it. There's these little extra bits of plasma energy that are floating around it that are kind of cool. And then you've got these like holes that are in the plasma itself, almost like we were going to borrow something from our bubble study. So here I see that the bubbles are like right here. And it might be cool if they grow and then shrink and disappear, and start small and grow and move and shrink. It might be cool if they come towards the center and shrink, or become odd organic shapes before they shrink again. So the progression would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, I think this could be improved just by making it a 5-point star. Everything does not need to just be a lens flare. I think this could be improved too, just by the energy coming towards the plasma and then going away, and then countering that by having a smaller one come in from the left. And so you've got a spiral that goes clockwise, a spiral that goes counterclockwise. This energy comes out, which is interesting. So juxtapose that by having one go the opposite way. And this one goes over and behind it. I think I like these little radial bits right here. They're kind of cool. If this character is creating these, or if it's emanating from this kind of area, it looks like he's got a crossbow or something. Yeah, there's definitely a crossbow here. So this thing is the radial effect coming off the center of what would be his arrow. And so you can work on the idea of a spiral going counterclockwise and another spiral going clockwise, but then you got to be careful of your lines not crossing over too much so that you can kind of see that effect. And it would be kind of cool to take this one and rotate it clockwise, and this one and rotate it counterclockwise. All right, so let's look at another orb. You know, this is kind of the same thing here, but this one's just a little different. So what I think I'm trying to do here is give you insight into how to do research and what to like and not like. You could certainly do this. You could certainly have your orb have this kind of energy, but it might be more interesting if these shapes right here move from the center and out and disappear. And then some of them move from outside into the orb itself, where the orb is just a small little sphere here. So again, these guys go out and then they come back in. They go out and then they come back in. So you animate the sequence just out, getting bigger, getting smaller, and then back in again. It can be kind of a cool thing. And again, this all has to do with whatever your composition is. You know, this is interesting here. I think I mentioned this before when we were doing our lightning strike, that if you have one anode over here and another anode over here, and let's say that you were doing a chemistry lab, you just have the energy start from one anode into the other. So these are basically electrodes. And in a cloud strike, you have an anode and a cathode. And what happens is that the energy from the sky goes to the ground, but then the actual lightning strike, so the first energy is from the cloud to the ground, but you don't see that. That's like the static electricity. So you can kind of emulate it like this. And then it goes back up to the cloud, or it starts at the cloud and then goes to the ground. So like when you're doing lightning, you definitely want to know where you're starting from and where you're going to. You want to know the start point and the end point. And so you want to get there. The lightning has the path of least resistance, definitely. So even just starting like this, you've already got the beginnings of a great little electric lightning blast. And then remember, the energy is fast, and so it continues straight out. This one's a big one. It continues further out and tries to get away, and then it realizes, oh, I'm always going this way, and it gets this way. And so, oh, this, and so just looking at the aesthetics, just in terms of stylizing a straight line lightning, that kind of starts to work. The same thing would be if you're looking at this inverted as a saguaro cactus. A saguaro cactus is like that cartoon cactus in the Arizona desert that has this kind of main spine to it. And then it like sends out a little buddy over here. And then it sends out another little buddy over here. So you're looking at the silhouette, you're looking at the iconography of what it is you're drawing. And then remember that there is variety. There's a ton of different kinds of saguaros. So in this example, I'm making it fatter because it's older. And the interesting thing about saguaro cacti, is that they actually have a skeleton. And that woodpeckers get in there and they burrow holes inside it, inside the skeleton, and then animals live in there. And cactuses have flowers. So you're looking at just where this arm was placed and where this arm was placed. It goes all the way back to the idea of just me drawing a tree. What are you drawing? A maple tree. Draw the clump of leaves first, and then draw the trunk of the tree, because you don't want this as a tree. I will hunt you down and dress like you and follow you around if you draw trees that look like this. This is more of a mushroom shape. Okay, back to the two electrodes. If you were doing a thing where you have a game and you're in a chemistry lab and there's a Tesla generator, you start with a shape like this where the electricity is going back and forth at the speed of light. And in the middle, the energy tries to get away. And so you're working with it. You're just going from one electrode to the other. This is not an anode and a cathode, because then there's a direction. Here, it's just there. It's going back and forth at the speed of light. And so the aesthetic would be is that you want to get an opposite effect. So here you just go opposite and you cross the lines on the very next frame. You can even go backwards a little bit if you want. And then you try it. In your animation engine, you try just these two frames. It might work with just 2 frames on once. And then you think you can have a little fun with it to say, let's try one that goes right down the middle. And again, you're trying, just like the pixie dust, where you're trying not to have any 2 sections that are in the same place, any 2 parts that are in the same place. And then you have to look at it and say, can you see these backward shapes where the energy was actually going from right to left at the speed of light? Could it actually go backwards? And then you try it. You just see if it works. It's experimental. It is natural. You have lots of references. So you might try 4-frame of just these these 4 little parts having like static electricity or a Tesla generator. All right, so you could try this in your composition. This one's 4 frames here. All right, just a couple of other words about your orb. I think that what I was trying to get was, we've got some good orbs right here. And many of the instances of your orbs are all procedural, either in Maya or Unity or any of the other game engines. But I think that what our director and I spoke about was just augmenting them, making them better than what they started out to be. You know, this is an interesting thing that you could do here for a final. I don't know if I'm on my board or not. Let me save this, the effects board. Now, this is interesting. It's got the plasma blast, the orb, the lightning, the explosion, and the tornado all in one. It's very interesting. All right, so just a couple of more ideas about orbs. This is a good one here. This one's done in After Effects. I think your orb can have more of an organic, slower moving water effect to it if you want. It doesn't always have to be electrical based energy. It can have a style to it for sure. Let's look at this one. So one of the things that I wanted you to all try, and this is good, this is a good little search right here, is a good place to start is just starting with a sphere. Start with your sphere. This sphere here, and again, you can't do all of this in a class like this, but you do have one sphere on top of another, and they're concentric spheres, and another. And so you just start by drawing 3 concentric radiating spheres in Toon Boom, and then play with your opacity or your transparency, your blur, right? So transparency, blur are your 2 big ones. But you've got all kinds of cool things happening here where you do have a radiating from the center. And there are tons of little legs. And instead, I think I made a point last week, 2 weeks ago, where I was talking about having a hot core and then a shape like this that moves counterclockwise around, so that's the middle, and you can have all kinds of fun things. So in your composition, my suggestion would be is to have your orb break a window. Have the orb break, give yourself a path for the orb. So the orb comes in, it does something, it wanders around, it finds a place to rest, and then it blasts something. So this gives you a chance to really blast. Just with this thumbnail right here, you can see that you've got breaking glass, orb, blasting, and then a transformation that happens from the blast. You've got like 3 or 4 effects just right with this little thumbnail. You know, on top of anything else in the composition that might be Bunsen burners or flames on the wall. There could be all kinds of things happening here, water dripping and everything. But when your orb is, when you plan the orb coming in, just do your little tick mark so that you can bring the orb in as a simple shape, or in animation, what we called it as a dropout. So let's say that that this orb right here just has a hot core and then a medium and a outside. And then maybe you want to stick with the idea of a 5-point star. And so this is just your orb. This is the thing that you copy and paste on this track. So you don't animate this. You can just copy and paste it. And every time you paste it, you rotate it just a little bit. And remember that if you are in a 5-point star, when you copy and paste it, so this is your travel, that this is frame 1. When you paste it into the next frame, if you were to paste it right in the middle, it would just wiggle back and forth. And so move it 1/4 of the 5th of the rotation. I forget what that degree is. It's like 12 degrees or something like that. And then the next, so copy and paste it again, and then do this one. So this is frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, and then your 5th frame again is going to be here. So this is actually frame 5 is frame 1. And then all along this path, this orb will be rotating counterclockwise. But when you get to here, then you can really embellish about what that orb looks like. And you can pick out any of these things. You can pick out these little plasma trails coming off, any of the tendrils. You can have total fun with what that orb looks like, just in terms of variety of shapes and what these things look like. And again, I think that these little triangular parts here can have an effect where they're just hanging there, or you can use a trace back where you're using a moving hold. And so with this orb, you copy and paste things, and you just draw this and you draw this, and you get it to move just a little bit because it's an orb. It can do it whatever it wants. And then it blasts. So from the core, it sends out some sort of energy, and it blasts something. Animators can have fun with turning your thing into a character or something. All right, so hopefully what I was trying to do is just talk about the idea of variety of shapes, glow, transparency, blur. Glow, transparency, blur. There's lots of really cool things out there. For you, I think it's just part of your final composition that you're putting together for 3 weeks from today. So everything is technically due on the 27th. So next week, the week after, and technically all of this 27th, the 27th are basically work days. And so just working through your final, and then getting whatever other projects that you have working up to the aesthetics that we just talked about, variety of shapes, cool motion, and I think most of you are there. All right, do I have any questions? I'll let you out a little early today. Aesthetics. The whole big push for today is aesthetics. Make it look cool, make it look awesome. And then going all the way back to day 1, if you don't have your sketches, you should have sketches, little thumbnails of what you want your final to look like. Okay, make it cool. There's a folder for me to look at next week. Make it awesome. All right, guys, okay? Rob? All right, we'll let you out a little early. I'll see you next week. I will see you all next week.
All right. See you next week.
Okay, have a good afternoon. We'll see you on Friday the 13th.